What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here. Welcome back to the channel. And for today's video, I'm going to be showcasing to you guys the top 10 greatest NXT matches in NXT Takeover history. This unfortunately does not include NXT War Games back in December, nor does it count for New Year's Evil or Vengeance Day, because unfortunately none of the matches on those cards really stood out that much, in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were great. They were good matches, but they just weren't like anything too crazy, if you will. So with that being said, if you guys remember, at NXT War Games, which was the first, like, I guess, premium live event that wasn't called a takeover. It was team Raquel Gonzalez versus Toxic Attraction and Dakota Kai. Cora Jade ended up picking up the victory for her team, which was okay. It was alright. Then of course we had the team of Kyle O'Reilly, who was actually once who actually left NXT that very same Tuesday, after War Games, unfortunately, and he had teamed up with Von Wagner to take on the team of Fabian Aichner and Marcel Barthel, known as Imperium, which was a hell of a match, I have to admit. It was pretty insane. Then of course we had Hair versus Hair, Duke Hudson versus Cameron Grimes. We had Roderick Strong versus Joe Gacy for the Cruiserweight title. And then of course we had the men's War Games match, which was Team Black and Gold versus Team 2.0. Team Black and Gold featured Pete Dunne, or I guess now Butch, LA Knight, and of course DIY's Johnny Gargano and the NXT champion at the time, Tommaso Ciampa, as they took on Braun Breaker, Tony D'Angelo, Grayson Waller, and the North American champion Carmelo Hayes. Now, as far as Vengeance Day as far as Vengeance Day and New Year's Evil was kind of an okay event, but neither of those three, Vengeance Day, New Year's Evil, nor War Games was anything too special, I'll admit. But these matches right here, these 10 matches plus the six the six honorable mentions, if you will, are probably some of the best in NXT history. So we are going to kick things off. Oh, almost forgot. Hopefully you guys do enjoy this top 10 video. If you guys do and you guys want to see more top 10 videos in the future, make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, and make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And as always, my social media links will be in the description below, as will the info to fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. I apologize for not doing the video yesterday. I ended up, I got caught up in the moment of doing a deck profile, so I do humbly apologize, but today is the day we do the top 10. So let's kick off the honorable mentions with number 6, which is Adrian Neville versus Tyson Kidd for the NXT title at the very first NXT Takeover. This was interesting because the match that defined Adrian Neville, or I guess now on AEW, the Bastard Pack, was him defeating Bo Dallas for the NXT title. That was one of his crowning moments in NXT, and one of his big challengers, if you will, was actually Tyson Kidd at the first ever NXT Takeover, which was an interesting match, but it was so good. It was so good. The high flying skills of Adrian and Neville, or I guess Pac for that matter, against the high flying and technical submission base prowess of Tyson Kidd. That right there spelled out the perfect match. The only problem that I had with this match was the fact that, there weren't that a lot of people actually found this somewhat mediocre. Honestly, I don't know why, but still, it is what it is. Next up, coming in at number 5, we've got Jushin Thunder Liger, the Hall of Famer, versus Tyler Breeze, aka Prince Pretty, at NXT Takeover Brooklyn 1. The first ever Takeover Brooklyn. This was actually the biggest match in Tyler Breeze's career in NXT, because of the fact that he was going up against at the time, a future Hall of Famer, and a man who had won so many championships all over the world, including Japan, WCW, ECW, all over the world. And if Breeze were to have picked up a victory over Liger, it would have catapulted Breeze into getting future title opportunities at some point. But of course, Liger picked up the victory there. This was the first takeover outside of Full Sail University in Orlando. Big shout out, no copyrights, of course. So obviously nerves were kicking in, and a lot of people were like, "What do we do? This is a lot of people. We've never dealt with this many people before." They were able to manage. It. But this matchup, it was good. Not like career defining for Breeze, because his career kind of went downhill a little bit. Next up, coming in at number 4, we got Robert Roode, or I guess back then Bobby Roode, versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the NXT title at NXT Takeover Orlando. This was a rather unique matchup, because Takeover Orlando was pretty much the last match of Shinsuke Nakamura's career in NXT before jump shipping over to SmackDown that same Tuesday, because that Tuesday was basically the fallout from WrestleMania on the SmackDown side of things. And I have to admit, this was actually this was an interesting matchup, because Bobby Roode would do whatever it took to remain NXT champion. Takeover Orlando was no different for Bobby Roode. Next up, we have Alistair Black, or I guess Malachi Black, I think is his name on AEW. I don't know. I don't watch AEW, sadly. Just based off I base it off of what I've seen on social media. But Alistair Black versus Adam Cole at number 3, Extreme Rules at NXT Takeover Philly. This takeover was kind of interesting, because I believe the main event from that one was Andrade versus Johnny Gargano, if I remember correctly, for the NXT title. And a lot of people actually did not like the way the match ended, because of the fact that Zelina Vega, or I guess Queensley now, got involved in the match and cost Johnny Gargano the victory at that time. But the highlight of Takeover Philly was actually Alistair Black versus Adam Cole under Extreme Rules. Why? Hello, Extreme Rules, Philly. You guys get the picture. ECW, plain simple. But I must admit, I actually enjoyed this matchup. This was one of those matches that I thoroughly enjoyed because of the fact that it told the fans how far Adam Cole was willing to go to pick up a victory over Alistair, and the same thing went for Alistair Black. They would do whatever it took to beat the hell out of each other and pick up a victory. Of course, too, even with the rest of the Undisputed Era, excuse me, Adam Cole could not pick up that victory. But the only reason why I put this at number 3 in the honorable mentions list is because there were some reporters out there that gave this match, I think, out of 5 stars, it was only like 2.5 stars or something like that, because of the fact that those reporters were expecting Adam Cole to pick up a victory, but they ended up getting Alistair Black. So yeah. Next up, we've got, coming in at number 2, we've got Samoa Joe versus the Demon Finn Balor for the NXT title inside a steel cage at NXT Takeover The End. This was basically, I believe this was the last NXT Takeover that would take place inside Full Sail, aside from, because I know that Takeover Brooklyn 1 was the first takeover outside of Full Sail. This would actually, I believe, be the last. Before we got to before they started traveling with the main roster as far as their own takeovers go, I believe. I'm not so sure, but this was rather unique because Finn Balor was trying to regain the NXT title, and when it comes to Finn Balor's alter ego, the Demon, anything is possible. You cannot prepare for the Demon, but Samoa Joe was ready for the Demon, but this ended up getting one of the not one of the worst reviews, but one of the most unique reviews, if you will. A lot of people actually gave this matchup only 3 stars, I think, mainly because of the fact that they were expecting something like completely out of the ordinary with the Demon, but nothing really came up. This was a unique matchup in my opinion, but still, it was pretty incredible. Getting the chance to watch the Demon inside of a steel cage, yeah, that was pretty unique, to say the very least. But coming in at number 1 on the honorable mentions list, we've got Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Bayley for the NXT Women's title and an NXT TakeOver rival. This was probably the biggest match on the card for NXT TakeOver rival because of the fact that these 4 women hated each other. They wanted to tear each other's heads off. This matchup was no different. I believe Sasha Banks picked up the victory over Charlotte Flair via submission, and then transitioned into a pinning predicament, allowing Banks to pick up the victory over Charlotte, which made her NXT Women's Champion, and she ended up going on to become one of the most dominant NXT Women's Champions in history at that time. And I must admit, it was kind of interesting in my opinion. But those are the 6 honorable mentions. If there was something that I missed from all the past takeovers? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. But now we gotta get into the top 10. Kicking these off at number 10 is Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura at NXT Takeover Dallas. This would actually become Sami Zayn's last match in NXT, but before jump shipping over to the main roster the very next night. The next night at WrestleMania in Dallas, WrestleMania 32, he ended up becoming one of the 7 men to compete for the Intercontinental title in a ladder match, I believe. It was actually the first pay-per-view that's on this book, actually. Let's see here. Kevin Owens, Stardust, Sami Zayn, Sin Cara, Zack Ryder, Miz, and Dolph Ziggler were actually the ones that that would be in this matchup. Zack Ryder, or I guess now Matt Cardona, using his real name, were actually the ones that won the match, but ended up losing the title the next night, which was pretty sad. But this matchup not only defined Sami Zayn as a competitor, but Sami Zayn had one job, and that was to get Nakamura even more over with the fans. Past with flying colors. Shinsuke Nakamura ended up going down in history as one of only 5 men? One of only 5 men to have held the NXT title twice. Shinsuke, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Tommaso Ciampa, and Karrion Kross are the only ones that have ever been a champion twice. But Samoa Joe's the only one who's held the title 3 times. I'm not so sure if we'll see Joe back in WWE, but if we do, I'm all for it. But this matchup, absolutely incredible. Probably one of the best matches of Sami Zayn's career in NXT. But if you think that matchup was impressive, number 9 will be just as. Because since we're on the topic of Sami Zayn, we gotta talk about his match with Adrian and Neville for the NXT title at NXT Takeover Our Evolution. This was actually Sami Zayn's big opportunity to prove to the world that he deserves to be champion, and he told the world, if I lose, I will leave NXT. I will voluntarily leave NXT. So it was make or break for Sami Zayn, and he defeated Adrian Neville with the Haluva kick to win the NXT title, but unfortunately it was short-lived, as he got his ass handed to him by Kevin Owens, which pretty much gave Kevin Owens the chance to face Sami Zayn for the NXT title not too long after that. And yeah, it was pretty much academic from there. Kevin Owens ended up becoming NXT champion, but this matchup, absolutely incredible. This match defined Sami Zayn as a potential champion, if you will, which was pretty insane. But coming in at number 8, since we're on the topic of Kevin Owens, Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens for the NXT title in a ladder match at NXT Takeover Brooklyn 1. This match was undescribable, as I say. It was undescribable. Kevin Owens, being the typical heel that he is, he had tried to duck away from Finn Balor. Nothing. He even brought out the demon, his alter ego, to win the NXT title, and Kevin Owens did everything he could. But this matchup was absolutely insane. This was probably the crowning achievement for Finn Balor. But the big difference here, I hate when this happens. Sorry guys. I'm actually using my light over here and the light on my laptop as light for my face. So I do apologize. But where was I? Oh yeah. So the only difference between Balor's first run as NXT champion and his second was the amount of time he was as champion. Finn Balor's first run, he held it for 197 days. His second run, he held it for 212 days, which was one of the longest runs in NXT history. So this matchup, absolutely insane. Definitely deserves to be at the number 8 slot. But coming in at number 7 is by far one of the darkest was probably by far one of the best matches ever, but one of the darkest moments in history. The Authors of Pain, AOP, Akam, and Razar versus DIY, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, for the NXT Tag Team titles at NXT Takeover Chicago 1. This was... I don't even know how to describe it. This matchup, absolutely insane. I wanted to put this at somewhere at like the number 4 or the number 3 slot, but this deserves to be at number 7. Not because of the fact that, not because of how the match ended, but because of what happened after. And I remember this very, very fondly. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano were on stage. They were sharing a moment. And then Tommaso Ciampa ended up turning heel on Johnny Gargano, attacking him and sending him to a hospital. He also ended up having surgery himself. So this was a perfect way for him to not only get time away from NXT, but it was a way to split up DIY because he thought DIY had officially ran its course. I don't think so. I honestly do not believe that. But what's even more hilarious is that DIY as a cohesive unit, instead of not as two egos, but as a cohesive unit, did not reunite until until Worlds Collide, if I remember correctly, back in 2020, where they took on, where they went up against Mustache Mountain, Tyler Bate and Trent Seven. I believe DIY picked up that victory, but that wasn't until later on that I think it was at Takeover Portland, if I remember correctly. Johnny Gargano ended up turning heel on Tommaso Ciampa. The tide turns, right? But this matchup, absolutely incredible. This actually got AOP over with the fans, more so DIY, because again, DIY, it had ran its course, but still, it is what it is. But since we're on the topic of Johnny Gargano, coming in at number 6 is what is going to be a very questionable choice, but this was just my honest opinion. It was Andrade Cien Almas, or I guess Andrade, versus Johnny Gargano at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3. This was an incredible matchup. This was so unique, so incredible. I believe this was the night that Adam Cole debuted in NXT. What was it, 2017? Yeah, so 2017 was when he debuted. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So he ended up debuting in 2017 during this night, but these two men, this was actually the start of probably one of the most intense rivalries in NXT history, because Andrade later that year ended up becoming NXT champion, and Johnny Gargano ended up having multiple opportunities at the NXT title, which their last encounter was on NXT, and the terms were, if Gargano won, he would become NXT champion. If he lost, he would leave NXT. And Tommaso Ciampa basically ensured that, well, Gargano did not leave NXT. And my brother just texted me out of the blue. And plus Ciampa wanted to make sure that Gargano never got a title shot ever again, which sparked one of the most heated rivalries in NXT aside from this one. But speaking of DIY, coming in at number 5 was DIY versus the Revival, or I guess now FTR, for the NXT Tag Team titles in a 2 out of 3 falls match at NXT Takeover Toronto 1. This was actually DIY's last opportunity at the NXT Tag Team titles, and DIY said that they were going to make the best of it, and sure enough they did. They made the best of it. This was insane. I don't know how to describe it. First of all, I believe the Revival picked up the victory. Second fall, DIY picked up the victory. Third fall, DIY picked up the victory via a double submission, which was insane. There's not much else to say about this matchup except the fact that Revival never had attempted to regain the titles, but never could. So they ended up heading over to the main roster several months later. And speaking of DIY, you guys know what's up next. Coming in at number 4 is Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa in an unsanctioned match at NXT TakeOver New Orleans. This match, in my opinion, should have been at number 1, but I put this at number 4 because of the fact that this was probably the most insane match I had ever seen. Gargano ended up getting fired from NXT. I think from his last match. So if you guys remember, when I had talked about the number 6 spot, which was Andrade versus Johnny Gargano, I almost forgot that because of the fact that Ciampa attacked Johnny Gargano, Gargano ended up getting fired from NXT. I know I said that he didn't get fired, but I actually remember that he did. And Gargano was like doing all this other bullshit to try to remain in NXT, and Ciampa said, "All right, you know what? I'll give you a match. You want a match against me at TakeOver Orlando? I'll give you a match. Unsanctioned. You win, you can come back to NXT. If I win, you're done." There are no words that can describe how insane this match was. This was a fucking war. You guys think War Games is war? This right here, this matchup, was the ultimate form of war. Absolutely nuts. Johnny Gargano ended up using Ciampa's own knee brace to apply an STF onto Ciampa, and he had no choice. He couldn't bear it. He had no choice but to tap out, which gave Johnny Gargano his job back in NXT. This rivalry would go on for quite a while, I think up until Ciampa's neck surgery, and he ended up leaving NXT for a while, which allowed Adam Cole which allowed the rivalry, which allowed the Adam Cole Johnny Gargano rivalry to start up, and the rivalry between Ciampa and Gargano would eventually come to an end. This now comes up to number 3, and this was history in the making. And what do I mean? And you guys are wondering, what do I mean by that? Bayley versus Sasha Banks for the NXT Women's Title in the first ever Iron Man match in NXT history at NXT Takeover Respect. This was the highlight of Bayley's career in NXT. Sasha Banks had already been called up to the main roster via the Divas Revolution, or I guess the Women's Evolution, if you will. And there was nothing left for her to do in NXT except regain the NXT Women's Title. This would be Sasha's last match in NXT as a full-time competitor. But you guys know sometimes those who got called up to the main roster from NXT can oftentimes come back. It's happened before, but this would make or break for Sasha Banks, because if Sasha would lose, she could never have gotten a shot at the NXT Women's Title again. But funny enough, I believe this only lasted 30 minutes. I believe this was a 30-minute Iron Man match. I believe the score was 3-2. Bayley ended up picking up her third fall over Sasha Banks via a submission at the last couple seconds of the matchup, which was insane. But I have to admit, the rivalry between Bayley and Sasha was something to remember. But speaking of something to remember, coming in at number 2 was a match 10 months in the making. Ilya Dragunov, Walter, or I guess now Gunther, for the NXT United Kingdom title at NXT TakeOver 36 from last year. I must admit, and I'm being completely honest, this matchup, intense. And I know I've said that quite a few times in this video, but this matchup was so intense, so heated. Words can't describe how heated it was, because on an episode of NXT NXT UK, I think it was back in 2020. Back in 2020, Ilya Dragunov was given the opportunity to challenge Gunther for the NXT UK title, because if you guys remember, earlier in 2020, before the COVID-19 pandemic started, Ilya Dragunov had won a battle royal where the winner would face Gunther for the NXT UK title. Originally, it was supposed to have taken place at TakeOver Dublin, but because that we never got TakeOver Dublin, rumor has it that it was supposed to that TakeOver Dublin was going to take place in the summer, but because of the pandemic, it just got even worse, worse. TakeOver Dublin was just scrapped. It got completely scrapped, and I don't think we're ever gonna get TakeOver Dublin again. But I must admit, their first encounter, absolutely nuts. All it took was one wicked chop to the back, to the spine of Dragunov, to knock him out cold, and Gunther retained. Since then, Ilya Dragunov had been on a rampage at that time, and What I mean by that is, if anybody would give him a chop, whether it was to the front, from on the chest or on the back, he would just go off and just try and send people to a hospital, and it was pretty gnarly. But it wasn't until Takeover 36, right around the time of Takeover 36, Gunther gave Dragunov a rematch for the title. During the summer last year, and this would define Dragunov as a person and as a and as a competitor, as he made history by becoming the first person in WWE to pin Walter, or I guess Gunther now, in a one-on-one match. Absolutely nuts. There are no words to describe it. Now, I believe in 2 weeks, or I guess next week, if you will, Dragunov will be defending his title against Roderick Strong, which will be pretty cool to watch. But this matchup, absolutely nuts. But if you think this was nuts, the number one spot, I am not going to say anything more about it except, holy shit. That's all I gotta say. Coming in at number 1, Adam Cole, baby, versus Johnny Gargano for the NXT title at NXT Takeover Toronto 2 in a 2 out of 3 falls match. NXT General Manager at the time, William Regal, told these dudes, hey, Gargano, you pick one. Cole, you pick one. I'll pick the last and deciding fall. Gargano, I believe, chose a straight up one-on-one wrestling match, pin or submission, plain simple. Adam Cole ended up picking a street fight. The third fall, we would not find out until Takeover Toronto 2, and we saw a weaponized steel cage. Absolutely horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. Adam Cole picked up the first fall via disqualification. Gargano picked up the second fall. Adam Cole picked up the third fall by the most insane way possible. Not much else to say about that. I'm not even going to say anything else about that except, holy shit, that matchup was insane. You guys need to watch that one. I think you can watch it on YouTube. Let me look on here. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Adam Cole. Let's see. Yes, you can. You can actually watch it on YouTube. Right, it's actually on YouTube right now. So I might watch it. Honestly, I think I might watch it. But yeah, you can actually watch it on YouTube. In fact, a lot of his matches are on YouTube. You know, such as his matches with Johnny Gargano, with Ricochet, Seth Rollins. With obviously Alistair Black as well. Even also that NXT North American title ladder match as well is on there as well. So, but yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. If there was anything that I missed, or if there was something that you feel like or if there was a match you feel like should have been on the top 10 list, let me know in the comments, and that will do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash the thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want to see more WWE videos in the future, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. All the links will be down in the description below. And if you guys have any fan mail you guys want to send me and you guys want me to open it up on the channel, all the info will be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.